We've been making progress so far, and I hope you are enjoying it and practicing what you're learning. Now we'll be talking about UI design and visual assets. What are the key principles of UI design? What do you need to put in mind for you to have a good UI design? Number one, keep it simple. Remember that simplicity is essential. Your design should be clean and straight to the point. Avoid using too many colors. Avoid using languages that are difficult for user to understand. The second one is hierarchy and priority. By hierarchy and priority, which we've discussed in our first module, it talks about using key elements like text, size, colors, and placements to guide attention and emphasize key elements. So when you want the user to focus on something, it's best to use hierarchy. The next one is it should be readable and legible. Do not use very tiny text for information that you want the user to see, because they might have to squint their eyes in order to read it, which becomes a bad UX because that is not a good experience. You want to maintain sufficient contrast also between the text and the background. So if you're using a white background for your design, it is best to use a text color that will fit that background perfectly. We are going to go to the practical aspects as soon as we are done with explaining these 5 key principles. The next one is responsive. Now remember, like I said earlier, when designing for desktop, your users might likely be using a mobile phone. So you want to design products that can be used both on desktop, talking about websites, and also on mobile phone. Error prevention talks about giving user an idea of an error that might likely occur. Things like error prompt messages, guidelines to password. This thing help the user enjoy the process. All right, let's practice what we've learned. So we said the 5 basic keys to a good UI design is keeping it simple, maintaining hierarchy and priority, making it readable and legible, always make it responsive, and have error prevention. Now the first thing we want to do is create our frame. In this case, I'll be creating a desktop. All right, so talking about simplicity, it means when you're designing a product, it is best to keep your text simple and don't make it complex. And here's an example. So I want to write my hero section and say this is my hero section. And then possibly give it a color that is red or blue. And then if I go ahead to put a picture, let's say here, an image goes here, and then I want to write a subtext, copy this and paste, make it a regular text, reduce the font to about 32, and then make the color red. All right, now let's say I don't like the white, right? I don't like the white background. I want to add something to it. I could just go to the ellipse tool on the shape tool and then maybe just draw an ellipse like this and then give it, because I love colors, I decided to give it green. Now this doesn't look simple, this looks bad because the user would not enjoy viewing this. It looks bad, it looks terrible. So here's an alternative. I'm just going to duplicate this. That's Ctrl C, Ctrl V. I could make this place, black, make here black, but not 100% black. Take this off, right? And I have just my simple design. If I want to still touch it up, I could change my background color to something around gray so it doesn't become 100% white. Now, this is more simpler, this is more complex. So keep your design as simple as it can be. Let's move to the next one, hierarchy and priority. When it comes to hierarchy, we need to understand which one comes first. So if I want my users to see this is my hero section first, it means this has to be bigger in terms of size. And then this down one is smaller in terms of size. So if I change this text to I love my hero section and then increase it to 48 or to 64 and make it bold, and then decrease the first one to about 24. Now this is not a good practice with hierarchy, because this is my hero section is supposed to be the first thing, and I love my hero section is supposed to be the second thing. Now this statement doesn't make sense because by default the users are going to read I love my hero section first and then read this is my hero section. Now this is how important hierarchy is. So you want to place the most important in the right places, meaning if you're using sizing, the most important has to be bigger than the less important. See it as order of priority. What's more important to you comes first and is legible first before every other thing. Now let's go to the third one, which is readable and legible. Now let's assume this is my hero section and then I have my subtext and I choose my font type to be light and then decrease the font size to be 14. Now if this is viewed on a website, my user will not be able to see this. So that information will be void and they will not enjoy using the product. So you want to make it readable and legible. And with that, you have to use a font that is very, very clear to use. So let's take this text back to 24 and then choose a font that is not legible enough. So this is an example. Fonts like this do not do well when it comes to building a product around UI UX. You need a legible font and something that is easy to see. Moving on to the next one, responsive. Now remember what we say during UX research. When building a product, especially on desktop, it is best to also consider that same product on mobile. That is what it means to be responsive. So when you design for desktop, always keep in mind that your users might likely use a mobile phone. Now let's move to the last one, error prevention. Like I said, this talks about giving your users an idea of a possible cause of error that might likely happen. Take for example, your user wants to sign up. Or let's do this on mobile. So I'm just going to drag this mobile here. and then bring this text here. So we have our sign up button. Now on mobile, I have to reduce this so it doesn't get too big, assuming the user is signing up for an application. And then we have to create our forms. So we are going to use rectangle to create a form like so. We'll get to all these later on. So I want to create a form, and then I'm going to write full name. Of course, I have to change this font because it's not meant to be very bold. So I'm going to use the regular, reduce the size to about 16, and then put it here. And then move further to write maybe username. And then copy these two and paste them and name them password, right? So now let's assume I want a user to understand what password they are imputing when creating a design. I can give them an instruction that says one caps letter, then also one symbol, one numeric, one number. Now I have to reduce this to the barest minimum, so I'm going to use 10. Now what this means is when the user wants to create a password, when they want to create a password, they should have an idea that when you're creating your password, it should have at least one capital letter, one symbol, and one number, so that they don't create a password and then it shows an error and this now comes up. It's frustrating. So why not just show them at once? Now this is dependent on how you want to build your product security. Most people do not care about this, so they don't even mind. So once you create a password, you're good to go without putting this in mind. But for an extra layer of security, I love doing this to my design, and I will advise you to do so. Let's go back to our lecture. Let's move over to design system and style guide. Now first, let's define style guide. A style guide in the context of design and branding is a comprehensive set of guidelines and standards that define the visual and sometimes written identity of a brand or product. Sounds big, right? Let me explain it. Style guides are just guides that help you design products better. They are just key things that you need to put aside when you want to design. See it like you're in the kitchen, you want to cook. The ingredients that you put aside before cooking, they are called your style guide. Now, what is design system? Unlike style guide, design system is a comprehensive collection of reusable components, guidelines, and assets that are used to create consistent and scalable design for digital products or application. So, style guides are just things you need to create a particular design, whether a mobile app or a website. But a design system is more complicated because it carries the brand voice of that particular product. Let's move forward for more explanation. The contents of a style guide includes, but not limited to, the logo usage, the color palette, which talks about the colors you want to use for your design, the typography, which is the typefaces you want to use for your design, iconography, which are the icons you will use for your design, grid system, which is how your design should be aligned, and navigation bars, which talks about navigating through your product. While the design system talk about the brand guidelines, what are the guidelines that your client has put in place for his or her company? You have to follow it. Secondly, style guide. In design system, a style guide is embedded into it. And that's why design system is wider than just the style guide. In style guide, we also have UI components, which includes the buttons, the forms, the cards, the navigation menu as well. Also, we have documentation, which talks about how to use these buttons, how to use the forms, how to use the cards, and how to use every other component that appears in your design system. And the fifth one is interaction guidelines. Things like hover effects, button states, and more. Explaining hover effects. Hover effects simply talks about what happens when your mouse goes over a button. Does it change color? Does it become bigger? Now, these things are part of your design system. Button states. When you have a button that is not clickable, it's called a disabled state. We are going to go into that practically and we'll see how that works.